My name is Heidi. Sitting alone at my desk, surrounded by the fruits of my hard work, I felt a profound change in the atmosphere. The weight that had been pressing down on me for so long was gone. It was as if the past, which had been inching closer, finally reached its limit and collapsed under its own strain. I remember the time when winter was loosening its grip on the city. The outside world seemed to thaw, but a cold tension settled into my life. Work was my haven, yet even there, I couldn't escape the feeling that something was watching my every move. At the shop, the more I improved, the heavier the sense of being monitored became. Outside, the city's normalcy seemed to mask an underlying unease. The bus rides were long, and street corners carried an indescribable edge. Back at my apartment, the quiet that I once cherished turned into a prison of thoughts. My sketchbook, my source of comfort, became a silent reminder of the tension. Every line I drew wavered under the invisible pressure. I knew deep down that this unease wasn't random. It was a reaction to my growing independence, and it was clear that someone from my past had noticed my progress. It all started when I should have been celebrating a special birthday. I come from a wealthy family. My father, Mr. Thompson, is a strict and controlling man, always eager to maintain a certain family image. My mother, Mrs. Thompson, is a passive, aggressive woman who often goes along with my father's decisions to avoid conflict. My sister, Lily, is my father's favorite. She's used to getting all the attention and can be quite manipulative. A couple of days before my birthday, my father sat me down at the dining table. In his cold, authoritative voice, he told me there would be no birthday celebration. It wasn't because of financial issues. It was because Lily had been feeling down lately, and he thought it wouldn't be right to take the spotlight off her. I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but he was deadly serious. He said that a good daughter should understand her sister's situation and show loyalty. When I reminded him that I could afford my own celebration, he gave me a look of disgust. "It's not about the money. It's about family loyalty," he said. My mother just stood there, pretending to arrange the flowers, avoiding eye contact. That was the last straw for me. That night, while everyone was asleep, I packed a small bag with a sketchbook and some cash, enough for a month's rent in a place they didn't know about. The next morning, I stepped into an unfamiliar life. The apartment I found was small and unremarkable, but it was mine. No one here expected me to shrink myself for someone else's comfort. I found a job at a small design studio called Metro Print and Design. My boss, Alex, was a laid-back guy who didn't put unnecessary pressure on me. At first, the work was basic, organizing supplies and cleaning old equipment. But there was a rhythm to it, and I started learning new things every day. However, nights were tough. The quiet building and thin walls made me feel isolated. I often questioned whether leaving home was the right decision. Drawing became my way to ground myself in those lonely hours. As weeks turned into months, I began to adjust. I learned to manage my finances carefully and focus on my work despite the doubts. I started noticing small improvements in my skills, and Alex gradually assigned me more challenging tasks. But as I grew more independent and capable, I felt a strange tension building up. I realized later that this tension was a result of my breaking free from the patterns of my past. For years, everything in my family had revolved around Lily. I had learned to be quiet and take a back seat to avoid conflict. Even though I was away from home, those old habits were hard to shake. One evening, while I was organizing some design drafts, it hit me like a ton of bricks. The unease I had been feeling was a reaction to my growth. My independence had become visible to my family, especially my father, who was used to controlling me. They couldn't stand the thought that I was building a life outside their influence. But I was no longer the girl who needed permission to exist. I started documenting my progress, not because I was looking for a confrontation, but because I knew I needed to be prepared. At work, I took on challenges with determination, and each victory made me stronger. As winter faded into spring, the tension finally broke. The system in my family, which was built on hierarchy and control, collapsed because I was no longer a part of it. I had become unreachable, and they had become irrelevant in my new life. The silence in my apartment now felt like a blessing, a space that truly belonged to me.